everybody, welcome back to another urban aviary video. You are joining me today on my hour-long commute home from the Park City, Utah area back to my home in Davis County, northern Utah. I wanted to start doing a few shorter videos like this since I've got some time on my commute to share a few thoughts and opinions I have revolving around the world of raising quail and backyard agriculture and maybe just general things in life. I want to start out by letting you guys know, I've said it a few times before, but there's some changes coming to the urban aviary. I don't want to give too much away. I want to do a separate video once some things come through. We got to find out about a few things and see if a few things are going to work out or not before I give anything away. So we've been pretty busy trying to get some stuff sorted out and figured out the last month or so. So I do apologize, I haven't been as consistent as I normally am. So I'm going to start doing some of these smaller videos, shorter videos while I have some time on my commute. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about conquering analysis paralysis. What's analysis paralysis? This is basically, in the quail world, I think a lot of people stop from getting started on raising quail because there's a lot of information out there, and since it is something that is so easy to do, there are a lot of self-proclaimed experts out there, and a lot of them tend to make a simple thing way more complicated than it really is. There's a lot of misinformation and just things that are taken to the extreme with truths about raising quail, and I think a lot of people get flustered or just worried, at least, that things aren't going to work out if they raise quail, that they're more delicate and that they've got to do all these different things to make sure their quail don't die, or that they are happy, or just, there's a lot of stuff out there, I think, that makes people feel overwhelmed. That's why I did that video, if you go back and watch it, on getting started raising quail and quail basics of raising quail, and all the simple things you need to know. And anything beyond those basic things you'll figure out along the way, and you'll find that it's not as complicated as people are making it out to be. So this is kind of a video to encourage you guys to go ahead and pull the trigger on doing it if you've been wanting to do quail. Like I said, for $150 in that other video, I talked about how you can get started raising quail, even do it in your house, and then expand from there if you decide you want to. But let's get back to this analysis paralysis idea. So analysis paralysis, there's something in my life where I started experiencing this back in my early teenage years, when, like many guys, they realized they really like cars, and they like fast cars, and I'm no exception to that. But I'm also very different, and I don't fall into the same category as a lot of other guys that really like things like your Chevy Corvettes and Porsches and all these high-end cars, which to me, I mean, no offense if you guys like those cars, but to me it feels like there's a lack of imagination. I see people driving things like Corvettes, and I think that they've just got a lot of money and not a whole lot of imagination. But for me, I like the idea of spending a quarter of that money on something just, ugly, like an old 1980s Toyota Celica, and paying a professional to do some kind of a motor swap, like a 5.3 Chevy V8 Vortec engine, and throwing a couple turbochargers on it, and just having some insane amount of power in a featherlight car, and being able to pull up to those guys in their Corvettes and their Porsches, and being able to give them a run for their money. The kind of looks, I like those kind of looks when you get it on the road, instead of the people gawking because you're driving some expensive car. I like the gawking looks you get from folks in those high-end cars when they get spanked by some old crappy looking 80s piece of junk. And so there's a point here I'm getting to, and I'm sorry I'm kind of getting long-winded here, but I like the idea of doing these projects of cars like that, and doing these Frankenstein builds, and getting excited about doing these builds. I start making lists and figuring out what I want to do, and what car I want to do, what swap I want to do, what modifications I want to do, because I'm a guy that likes to make lists and be prepared. And so when I have all this time driving, as I do a lot of driving for work, I used to spend a lot of time thinking what I wanted to do on which project, and so I'd get my whole list made out, and then it would be done, and I'd be like, okay, now I just need to save up the money to do it. And it would take me a long time to save up the money to do it, and by the time I saved up the money to do it, I was burnt out on the idea. because I'd had everything, figured out to a T what I wanted to do, but then I'd go over it in my mind over and over, and it got so discouraged because I wanted it but couldn't have it, and I just overanalyzed it for too long, and I get burnt out on it, and I kind of really don't get too excited about fast cars anymore. Actually, is not as much as I did when I was younger, anyways. And so spending all this time thinking about something, overthinking about it, it throws you into this mentality of oh, I'm never going to achieve it, I'm never going to get it, or it's going to be too hard, and your mind starts thinking of all the hurdles you're going to have to jump through and how much more difficult it's going to be. And I know it's not that difficult, because me and buddies have gotten together and done Frankenstein builds like that in a weekend, in preparation to go out on a road trip or go on a trip to Moab, doing things like that with 4x4 rigs. So I know we can do it. It's just when you get too much time on your brain thinking about it and overanalyze it, you get discouraged. But in this case with quail, people are overanalyzing facts about it and making people think it's a little more complicated and there's more to it than there is. And I think that happens with a lot of other things in life too. People end up not pulling the trigger on things that can, make them happier, bring some more joy to their life, like raising quail, or maybe even something like starting a small business and pulling the trigger and starting their own business because they're worried about all the little intricacies and all the things you got to worry about. And I might be doing another video about that. If there's videos about doing small business stuff like what I'm doing with quail, let me know. I'd like to talk about that stuff too if you guys are interested. There's all sorts of things like that in life that I think people get caught up in this analysis paralysis. And you find out if you just pull the trigger on things, a lot of times they're not as complicated as they seem to be. Now, you obviously got to be prepared and know the basics of things and be ready for it. But don't overthink things and don't overanalyze it. And just use some critical thinking and common sense and challenge everything that you're being taught by people that are telling you about quail and their needs, what they have to have, and try and use a little critical thinking to back up what they're saying, or to challenge what they're saying, and try and take everything with a grain of salt. And experience is the best teacher. We're not talking about a child here. We're talking about quail. If you did mess something up, you can live and learn and do it again. So I hope that helped you guys out. That's the thought for today. We'll see if I can come up with something else. If you have any suggestions for anything you want to know about, let me know. I'd be happy to do more of these videos. So until that next one, remember, you guys can do this too.